truth, and life. Here is the Brother Leon Show. You better recognize.
What's going on, listeners? This is your boy, Brother Leon, and you are tuning into another episode of the Brother Leon Show. So today, guys, I am so glad we are going to go on Clubhouse, and we are going to have a discussion on what makes a person easy. So, hey, I want you guys, whatever you need, this brand, whether it's E&J, whether it's Hennessy, whether it's Paul Masson, get you something. I don't care if it's Coke. I don't care if it's Pepsi. I don't care if it's Gold Peak iced tea. Get you something, because we are going to go there tonight. And that's the God knows truth. So, hey, I am so glad that we have a panel of guests. I put the invite on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram. So, hey, I'm inviting everybody who wants to be on this to come on out, because it's going to be good. We're going to hash it up, mash it up. Whatever we need to do, man, to come to a conclusion, to come to a compromise, because we have got to deal with these labels and with these inaccuracies. So, guys, meet me over on Clubhouse. All right. So I just want to say welcome. I want to welcome all of you, to this discussion, because I'm going to tell you right now, this discussion probably wouldn't have came about because Miss Alicia Bennett, she put a post up on Facebook talking about what are the characteristics of an easy person. So I just want to acknowledge Miss Bennett. Thank you for that post. She is an author of Dear Future Spouse. She is also the creator of Dating Mechanics. And I'm not going to lie, man, she's been in this game since 2008. So I got to give her some props.
That's right. Claim your crime, Queen. Claim your crime.
Oh, yeah. So I want to give all of you guys props and everything like that. But I just want to say, from the door, that this discussion wouldn't be possible without Miss Bennett. So I just want to lay that out there, at first. So let me start with the group. I'm going to start from the bottom, then we're going to go to the top. So, Dr. Lang, can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Good evening. I'm Reverend Dr. Shellerine Lang. I go way back with Mr. Leon. He is a phenomenal podcaster, and he's making major moves just to change the game, that where transparency and honesty or authenticity is the name of the game. I am a Army chaplain. I'm a hospice chaplain. I'm an author. I've written 8 books. I'm a spiritual resilience coach, trauma-informed counseling, and I'm working on a doctorate in traumatology. And so I'm looking at how do we bridge the chasm between spirituality and mental health. A lot of times people of faith, they wear the mask of faith, but when the rubber hits the road, they don't want to talk about the depression. They don't want to talk about the suicidal ideation. They don't want to talk about, falling from grace. They don't want to talk about adultery and people just having sex and doing what they want to do. They don't want to talk about homosexuality in a real way. They don't want to talk about the frailties of the flesh. And so how do we take what's really happening in life, connect our faith to it, and then really hope and trust that God is really with us every step of the way? So I'm excited to be in the room. I'm excited about this topic. I mean, there's just a big double standard between whether a woman is easy and whether a man is easy, and what does it mean to be easy. So I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you about what all of that means. I am Reverend Dr. Shellerine, and I yield the mic.
All right. Thank you for that, Doc. Gotta give you some applause. All right. We're going to go next to Miss Eden Adele. So, Miss Eden Adele, can you introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. This is a great topic. I love it already. I am an author, a speaker, and a relationship advisor. My primary audience is over 40 with empty nests and full hearts. And we talk about things like this all the time. So I'm looking forward to chewing this one up this evening. Thank you for having me, and let's do this.
All right. Thank you for that. Oh my God, next we got on the mic. Who's going to come up next to the stage? My man, Rasan. How you doing, sir? Introduce yourself.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, wherever you are. I'm Rashawn. Long time listener, first time caller and host. First of all, to the Army chaplain. I retired Army 2018. I met Bennett Lasha a while back. We go back and forth on social media about this relationship. I definitely think this is a conversation that needs to be had because there's the anecdotal version of what's considered easy, but people don't really talk about what that really means. And is that really a measure of somebody being easy for accessible purposes or easy for a lack of morals or a lack of understanding of themselves? So I look forward to seeing where this conversation goes, letting it get wings, letting it fly. We may not solve the problem tonight, but it'd be good to spark the dialogue and keep it going.
Exactly. Let me give you some applause, sir. All right. And next we have coming to the stage, Miss Alicia Bennett. Talk to us.
Talk to us, Queen.
I'm so happy to be here and have this discussion with you all. I thank you all so much for just opening this up and giving the opportunity for all of us to just sit here and just ponder, right? Like on social media, on Facebook, and you don't get to talk. It's all type, right? So you don't know how somebody's saying something. You don't know. None of that comes across. But when you're able to actually say with your words and speak your mind, great conversations come out of that. So I appreciate Leon for having us all come here together. Like he said, I'm a relationship and dating coach, and I'm an author, and it's everything love. Everything love at this point. And like I said, just happy to be here.
So, hey, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you guys for all the work that you have put in. The one thing that I will say is that, had it not been for Miss Bennett, I probably wouldn't, met half of y'all. Because Eden, you've been on my show. Lauren Hope has been on my show. Joy Atlantis has been on my show. And it's all because, my connection with Miss Bennett. And I ain't gonna lie, the first time we met at a book fair. And that's the God Knows Truth. So, hey, I don't want to delay this discussion. So we are going to go in here and everything. So before we go, let me just set the tone and everything. We're going to have this discussion. This discussion is going to be, one of those type of discussions that's very thought-provoking. So, those who are in the audience, our goal tonight is to come to conclusions as well as compromises. Because number one, we got to figure out how we work. We got to figure out what is it going to take for us as couples or as people in relationships to know what works for us, but also come to a truth. And the one thing about truth is that it makes us free. It makes us free to decide. It makes us free to walk. It makes us free to fly. And so that's the one thing about truth. Truth is revealing. So tonight's discussion is going to be very revealing because everybody has a different perspective. God has given everybody different vision on certain topics and revelation on certain topics. And so it's going to come from different perspective. I come from a church perspective, but I call myself a secular preacher. And also, the reason why I call myself a secular preacher is because I have the tendency to cuss. So I'm going to tell you right now, some cuss words might come out my mouth. Now, one thing I will say, I cuss a little bit, but I don't curse. Meaning basically I'm not going to curse your life. I don't believe in that. And so we're going to go in here. So let me pull up the questions like I gave you guys, and we are going to start. So the first question that I have is this. Why do we look to relationships, to use relationships as medication for internal healing? So I'm going to repeat it again. Why do we look to use relationships as medication for internal healing? Because we self-medicate. We have the tendency to do that at times. So that's the first question that I want to put to the floor. So whoever wants to go at it, go ahead. Go at it. Tackle it.
Can I chew on this? So I'm going to give you guys the perspective here. I think we use relationships as a filler because a lot of times, a lot of us in my generation, I'm 43 years old, grew up, wasn't poor in terms of impoverished, but definitely poor by standards of living I have today. I didn't grow up in a two-parent household. So some of what we learn from relationships, we learn from watching like Friday TV when we were kids, where it was a two-parent household and all the problems seemed to get solved in 30 minutes. And that wasn't your reality. It became like a void. You convinced yourself because that wasn't what you saw, that's what you needed to be happy. So a lot of times you go into relationships from an unhealthy standpoint or an unfair standpoint for the significant other because you're not really allowing that person to be who they are because you've already crafted in your mind what they should be. So to answer the question, it comes from a lack of understanding of yourself. Everybody who you introduced talked about truth. But the cool thing about truth is that there's a universal acceptance of what truth is, but there's also an acceptance that no one's truth is universally everyone else's. So how that relates to relationships is that whatever needs I may have, which is my truth, I may be at a loss. And because I'm at that loss, I'm looking for someone else to fill that. But I don't even realize that's what I'm looking for. You know, because that takes a measure of understanding and maturity in your own self to really get, I'm lacking in this thing. So like for someone like myself, I'm gonna be completely honest, my language of love is touch, right? But I realized a lot of that came from the fact that, you know, I have 4 sisters and my mother was a single mother. As a child, I probably didn't realize, I probably didn't feel like I was like consoled enough. So because of that, I could be a little needy in a relationship. So those are things that I would have unfairly put on my female partner, that she had to minister to those needs. And so without realizing it, till you have a lack of understanding in yourself, you begin to project that on someone else. Let's be honest, most of us in a certain age group, you don't really know how to say to someone what you want. I mean, we think we're telling them, but we really don't know how to say it to be heard. So we just assume they should know. Well, if they love me, they would know. And that's not necessarily true. And then that's not respecting the fact that that person has their own truth they have to live in and their own insecurities and their own fallacies. So to tie it back to what you were saying, a lot of times people are looking for relationships to fill a certain void because they haven't really addressed to themselves what those voids are. And until you can do that, you can't even really try to heal yourself.
I like that. I like that. Does anybody?
I'd like to jump in here.
Yeah, go ahead, Doc.
We are created to be relational. And so when you look at the creation story, the only time God said something was not good was when it was man to be alone. It was not good for man to be alone, so God put him to sleep and created a woman because he needed something. So she was created to make the not good good. And so as the dynamic continues, they had an egalitarian relationship. There was no hierarchy. You know, they had equal standing with each other and with God. It was after the fall, what we decree as the fall, when they ate of the fruit that was not an apple of knowledge of good and evil. So when that became the case and they knew they were naked, they became ashamed. And so part of the consequences for that was that he would have to till the ground and he would have to work for everything. And the other part was that she would turn to him and he would rule over her. So we've made that prescriptive instead of descriptive. Descriptive in that when she turned away from what God said and turned toward this man and made him the priority instead of God, then he would then turn away from her. Because when she was created, he said, she is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. After they got in trouble, he said, that woman you gave me. And so the relationship dynamic was dismantled. And so now there's a problematic issue of them really identifying who they really are. Because prior to the mishap, prior to the fall, they had pure identity. They knew who they were. They knew who they were in each other. They knew who they were in God. Every generation after that has struggled with who they are. And so they're looking for love in all the wrong places. And so unfortunately, there's a saying that says to get over a person, you get under another person. And so if that is your framework, then you will place a distraction in the place of authentic healing. And as you do that, you become accustomed to a dysfunctional relationship. And in that dysfunctional relationship, that will become your new normal. And so then trauma from life and trauma from this relationship and looking for love in all the wrong places. That is why we don't get to the internal healing, because we're working on the surface of our life. And as we continue to work on the surface of our life, we don't have to deal with the real thing. We can just go from distraction to distraction. And then it becomes an issue of vulnerability. I don't have to be vulnerable. I don't have to let people in. You know, we do a good job of loving people. We don't do a good job of allowing people to love us. Loving people is not vulnerable. That's just part of who we are. But when you have to take the time to allow a person to love you, that means you have to be transparent. You have to be authentic. You have to put your wall down and allow somebody close to you. And so part of the challenge is the relationship has been distorted. The identity has been distorted. And then the truth of who we are has been distorted. And we allow distractions to continue to draw us away from our true identity. And so that becomes our new normal. I'm Reverend Dr. Shellerine, and I yield the mic.
All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I want to just give some applause for both of those comments. So, hey, does anybody else, any other moderators, Eden, Alacia, do you want to comment on that first question or even go back and forth with...
I do.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Because your question was, why do so many people seek relationships for internal healing?
Yeah.
And what I've seen over and over again is because orgasms feel better than therapy.
Yeah.
like
Yes.
It's really pretty much that basic.
Oh, yeah.
People would rather orgasm than go to therapy. And we become addicted to the sensations that we experience and also to our ability to create desired sensations in other people. And the idea that we can make ourselves feel better is often substituted for doing the work needed to actually become better. And since we don't make that distinction, and since relationships are so much more accessible, most of the time anyway, they're easier to get to. They don't require nearly as much from us or of us. We can be in a familiar space that we know how to manipulate to our advantage or to our desired end. And so we gravitate to that direction because it's what we've done before in order to soothe ourselves. It's become a coping mechanism of sorts. No matter how dysfunctional, it is familiar. And so it's easier for us to do. In order to actually do the work that it takes to create the healing that's required, for most of us, that means we have to come out of our comfort zone. We have to do something that isn't familiar. We have to explore places that we've been actively avoiding for sometimes years. And that idea is a whole lot less appealing than an orgasm.
Yeah.
So relationships become our safe place.
Yeah.
And the place where we, like the Reverend said, distract ourselves from what we know we need to do. But if we can put it off long enough for another orgasm, then I don't have to face it.
Hey, Doc, you
and I can stroke my own ego in the process.
Yeah.
I seriously, that's what I see. That's what I've seen over and over again. Mm-hmm. And I haven't seen anything yet to make me change my mind about that. Okay. So I am Eden, and that's my contribution.
Yeah, because you know what? The crazy thing is, it reminds me, when you were talking, it reminds me of that song Fiendin' by Jodeci. And that part, and I'm taking back to the part where it says, girl, all the chronic in the world can't even touch you.
Come on now. Come on now. When you become the drug of choice in somebody's life, that is a position of power and authority that most people don't have in any other area of their lives. And then just having that position by itself can become addictive
And then when
someone who just doesn't get confirmation or affirmation in other ways.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Rasan.
That's what I'm saying. And then when you break down the science of addiction and what addiction, like, I'm not talking about addiction where we talk from like the very standoffish, it's just a lack of willpower. I'm talking about the addiction, like the chemical dependencies that happen with the endorphins in the brain.
Absolutely.
It is very possible that even if it's not, that's why you can see people in toxic relationships that are not good for them, but there's truly a physical need to be with this person or with this thing they've created. And that's why you'll notice people have died in rehab trying to kick alcohol. We don't really can talk about that. But when someone who's a full-on alcoholic, like a chemical alcoholic, and we send them to rehab cold turkey, people have actually died trying to kick that habit. Or that's why they give heroin addicts methadone, because the addiction is so strong, you actually get sick trying to pull away. So there's some truth to that whole becoming so, I guess, enamored in somebody else, either because of who they are, the image you've created for them, that, it will allow you to go through some hell just to satisfy that fix, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Because I look at it like this. I'm like, man, please, why should I take and spend $100 on a therapist when I could just hook up with old Becky and she just knocked me off a couple good times and make me go to sleep?
Hey, when I was younger, it took me a long time to answer that. So Captain Mike can understand. I was a young E3 overseas in Europe, and I was what they call combat arms in the military, which is, when you think of the military, those are the people like trigger pullers, not like the truck mechanics, not the typist, not the clerk, the person who goes out with their face paint, jumps out of a plane, and does harm to bad people, right?
Yeah. So
there's really no room in there to talk about your feelings.
Right.
So you have a lot of guys in that world, because it's a very type A frat house world anyway. So you have a lot of people not taught to talk about their feelings, but to medicate through liquor. So there's various vices, and unfortunately, all the things that you are championed for, like promiscuity and reckless behavior, are the same things that we know once we get older as actually cries for help. So you got a bunch of 20-year-olds crying out for help, but they're being championed for the fact that they're knocking bodies down in the club.
Yeah.
And if you're a black man in Europe in your 20s, that's white girl heaven, if that's your thing.
Yeah.
So there's no room for, well, you know what? I'm really vulnerable because my mother wasn't around growing up. Nobody want to hear that shit.
Yeah.
When you're in survival mode, you really don't have room for that. If you're living your life from a survival mode perspective, there really isn't any room for that. And so you go for what's easiest to reach and for what provides the greatest impact the fastest. You're just trying to seek the fastest path out of your pain. It is part of our wiring. We seek pleasure, we avoid pain. Those are the two main focuses that we have in our lives as humans. And so if there's no direct path to avoid pain, then we'll seek pleasure. And whatever the fastest path to that is, that's the one we'll take, particularly if we're feeling as if any other path is just too difficult. It has too many steps we've never taken before, or they lead to a place where we don't really want to go, especially if we've been avoiding that place and we've managed to get from one day to the next day. We've convinced ourselves to some degree that we don't even need to go there, that it must not be that big a deal, because see how good I look when I'm going to work, and see how nice my house is, and see how good my children look, and see how all these things that we put in place to make us look like we're functioning, when really once the lights go out and we're staring at the ceiling, we go to sleep with our tears in our ears, but we don't tell anybody about that part. That's not making Instagram.
Yeah.
But that's a different room.
Oh yeah.
That's a different room.
Oh yeah. Hey, Miss Bennett, come on, take us home. Take us home. Give us some wisdom. What are you present to?
I don't know about all that, but what I will say is that we should use relationships as medication. We just need to do it properly. We don't do it properly. we don't want to feel, right? So Eden was talking about not wanting to feel or only wanting
I like that. I like that. We should. I like that.
To feel, only wanting to feel certain emotions, right?
Yeah.
And we're keeping ourselves from feeling the emotions that we need to feel. Hey, the Reverend said, people need people, right? Basically, is what she said. That's what we're here for, right? But we don't use that to our advantage. Instead, we clam up, we withdraw from people, and then we use these substances in order to medicate ourselves and make ourselves numb, right? Instead of really wanting to feel what we should feel. So I just believe that we should use our relationships with medication, because that's how we learn to grow. That's how we get out of the mess that we're in, right? And to be able to get that feedback and for people to love us in spite of, and all of those things. We just have to learn how to use that avenue properly. I think that's what we lack, or where we're lacking.
Yeah. I totally get where you're coming from and everything. I think a lot of times is, sometimes we have to, look at, okay, what are the relationships that are going to help? Because I remember a time in my life, I'm going to be transparent, where I was grieving a parent, and I'm not going to lie. I think during that time, you could call me a straight up hoe. I was on everything that was moving. And if I wasn't on everything that was moving, I was drinking crazy, because I got to the point where I just didn't want to cry no more. I just didn't want to feel nothing. And I thought that I could, get it with women. I thought I could get it with liquor. I spent all kinds of money at the strip club. And at the end of the day, it was like I had guys that was, with me with that. But at the end of the day, when I started looking at the money, I was like, I can't do this no more. I got to figure out something else. And I did. I figured out something else. I ended up actually going to therapy. Serious. Because it just...
All right.
Yeah. Nah, because even with that...
That's awesome.
Even with that, I hit a wall. I hit a wall, and I was like, I hit a wall because, it don't matter how hard I came. It couldn't get the devils out my head. It couldn't get the grief off my back. You know what I mean? And so, I think during that time, I'm like, man, it's by the grace of God, I did not catch HIV or AIDS. Because I was just out there like that. And I'm just being transparent. That was like years ago. That happened like around 95 and everything. And I'm just thankful to God that I'm here today to able to tell that story and able to bring it on this Clubhouse, because there may be somebody who may be going through something like that. And so, we could take everything that we're using.
Hey, what?
Yeah, go ahead.
Wouldn't you then say some of that growth and healing has to come through, unfortunately, this maturity?
Yeah.
Because in order to, unfortunately, we all have defaults. A lot of our defaults were assigned to us by the circumstances in which we grew up or what you observed growing up. So because of those defaults, you're going to respond when you get into real stress, not by what you've been taught, but what you know to be true. And it took you, and like I said, I can give you my story, but we got to do the whole nother time for that one.
Yeah.
It took me years to understand who I was, but more so who I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Once I was able to understand and value who I was not, I no longer held myself to this, I won't say invisible standard, but this thing where I wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
Like who I am today was not who I was 10 years ago, but I had to go through some things.
Oh, yeah.
Like they say, you can't have a testimony without a test type of thing,
Exactly. And I thank you for that, because, the one thing that I look back on is that everything that I was doing was contrary to the way that I was brought up, because I grew up in church. And the one thing about church, they say, if you fornicating, you're going to go to hell. So I'm like, man, I'm already going to hell. I'm like, man, my mom died. She was part of the church. I'm trying to understand why God took her. So I was like,
well, what if not I'm going to go to hell? I'm in hell.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I'm in hell.
Yeah. And that's how I was feeling. But, it was contrary to the way that I was brought up. So I ended up hitting a brick wall, but I'm thankful for that brick wall, because it got me sober. It got me sober enough to a point where I was like, let's do something else. Let's cut this off and let's seek out something else that's going to bring us back to life. Because during that whole year, I mean, I ain't gonna lie, it was by the grace of God I made it to 96. And even my godmother was like, Leon, I didn't think you was gonna make it. And I was like, yeah, Mom, I thought I wasn't gonna make it either, but I did. And I just, I'm thankful for the people that were there to help bring me back from all of that, because I felt like it was death, but then there was people who grabbed hold of me emotionally, like Miss Bennett said, and there were relationships that brought me out, that brought me back. And I could go to, certain places, like a therapist, and get healing and really start to hash out things, because it was a whole lot of issues with that. But I'm thankful for everybody's perspective. I think the one thing that I want to go in here, are there any questions from the audience? Does anybody want to ask any questions? Are there any comments, questions, or concerns from the audience, or even from our moderators? All right, so we're going to go into the next question. The next question is, how does home life and upbringing affect relationship lifestyle? So yeah, that's going to be interesting, because we hear the term. Ooh, I guess you just brought up that way. So who wants to
that's the first thing.
Oh yeah. So who wants to start that off? Who wants to open that can of worms?
I'll do that one too, man. I'll do that one too. I'm open book. I think you're related. Like I said, I grew up in a single parent home, and my mother did a phenomenal job. All her children are college graduates and high school graduates, but based on the circumstances, she did the best she could. It wasn't until I had kids though that I could really forgive my mother and father for some things, because once I became a parent, I realized, man, my parents. So I had my first child at 24, but my parents had kids at 17, 18. So I understood the fear and insecurity I felt at 24. I can only imagine what they went through at 18, 17. So a lot of that weight was lifted, but unfortunately, I had to grow up with my mother, and so I didn't see husband and wife working it out. My mother and father talked about each other to the kids. Like, they weren't together, they had no problem talking to the children about what was wrong with the other one. So it kind of gives you a very voided feeling, because, you're like, you don't know what to make of that, because that ain't had nothing to do with you. And then because you don't see your parents working through adversity, you kind of live in this gray world where it's not a black and white world where it's either perfection or it's bust, which isn't fair to anybody. So the lack of positive role models, I guess, relationship role models, you have to fill those voids on your own. And it goes back to what I said in the opening remarks. You learn a lot of your views on how a relationship does based on what Hollywood writers told you a relationship looks like. So you tend to think that all your problems can be solved in 30 minutes, and it's merely a case of somebody was wrong and somebody was right. You just got to figure out how to see it that way without realizing sometimes in a relationship y'all both was wrong or y'all both was right, and you just want to have to learn how to choose peace over being right. But when you don't know that, you spend a lot of arguments over stuff that you shouldn't argue of, because everything is a lie in the sand.
Yeah, exactly. I like the fact that you brought out Hollywood, because a lot of people, they feel as though, yo, man, if it ain't like Tyler Perry, I don't want it. I'm looking for a light-skinned savior. I'm looking for Shamar Moore to carry me through carry me to the other side.
Well, hold on. Well, hold on there. I don't want anything like Tyler Perry, especially those bad wigs. Let's not do that ever.
Please, not that, please.
Hey,
I think from the other side of that, I grew up with my both parents, and they met when they were 9. They had a mock wedding when they were 12. They started dating when they were 16. They got married at 18. And this year it'll be 53 years that they've been together. And I've watched them, through the flood waters of marriage. I've watched them maintain. So I will be 49 in September, and I've never seen them argue. I've never seen him raise his voice to her. I've never seen her raise her voice to him. And you would think that that would give me a sense of security. What it did was, it didn't prepare me for the real world. The average person doesn't do stuff like that. So I wound up marrying a man who came from something opposite. He came from fussing, fighting, cussing, and for him, that was how you express love. You express love by fussing and fighting. If you wasn't fussing, that means somebody was lying. My stance was, I didn't see arguing. I'm not going to argue. We can talk about it. Let's be reasonable. And so it set me up. It set me up to have imbalance in my expectations. So I had a lot of unmet expectations because the truth is, as you grow older, arguing is a choice. And so what you come from is what you bring to the table. But then when you're met with something that's very counterintuitive to what you learned, that becomes the rub. It's like, wait a minute, this is not what I'm accustomed to, and that is not your normal. So it wasn't my normal lifestyle to have somebody argue with me every step of the way. You know, so I'm trying to be the peacemaker, thinking, okay, this is how you show love, by being peaceful. And then his perspective is coming a different way. So I think it's just, we just have to learn that what we come from is our frame of reference, but we've got to open our frame of reference, because when we get out into the world and we get in relationship with somebody else, they also come with a frame of reference. And I think that's where we lose sight of it. We think everything coming from our way is the right way.
Yeah, I totally get that. Hey, does anybody want to tag on that?
Yeah, there is so much truth in that. What we grow up with typically, anyway, we get our relationship cues about how we're supposed to be from watching the same sex parent. And conversely, we get our expectations of what our partner is supposed to be to us by watching the opposite sex parent. And so whatever that template was that was set for you before you had the discernment to be able to say, yes, I want this, no, I don't want that, everything comes in as yes. Because as a child, you're just a sponge. You don't separate the good stuff from the bad stuff because you don't really even know what that is. You're counting on the people who take care of you to determine that for you. And you expect them to protect you from the stuff that's no. So if you're actually experiencing it, then it must be yes by default. And if there isn't anyone or anything that interrupts that pattern once you become an adult and you're responsible for your own thoughts and actions, most likely you'll continue doing what you saw because that's what you saw.
Yeah.
And it not because it's what's best for you, not because it's even what you want, but it's what you're familiar with. You end up doing what you know because you haven't taken the time to know what you're doing. And until you take the time to know what you're doing, you won't be able to rewrite the template into something that actually does work for you instead of against you.
Yeah. You know what? While you're saying that, I'm seeing The Color Purple. I'm seeing that part of the movie where Harpo came to Miss Celie and he was like, Miss Celie, how I get Sophia to listen to me? And her response was beat her, because that's all she knew. And then I'm flipping over to the other scene where Sophia confronted Miss Celie. You told Harpo beat me. And then she was up here saying, yo, I kill him dead. You know, and then she, the whole tirade, I had to fight my brothers, I had to fight my father. I kill him dead. And she said, I kill him dead. And so, it's funny because if it's something that we grew up with, that's what we witness. And a lot of times we have the tendency to gravitate towards what we witness. And sometimes we have these inner vows where we say, I ain't gonna never be. But unless you have some awareness and you make up in your mind about that, then a lot of times, even though you swear in your heart that you ain't going to never be, you end up becoming the thing that you said that you never would be, to a certain degree.
Absolutely.
And
because that's what you know best.
Yeah, because that's what you know. And the crazy thing is that I see people without therapy swear up and down, I ain't gonna never be that, but then they end up becoming the thing that they hate, or end up bringing into their lives the thing that they swore that they would never have, like an abusive father, like a controlling mother. Then you wonder, why did I choose her? Why did I choose him? Because that's what you grew up with, and you're not aware a lot of times of what you choose subconsciously.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's the subconsciousness that makes it so hard to uncover unless you're actually in a relationship.
Yeah.
Because some of those things you just won't even face, or you won't recognize or acknowledge until you're in a relationship. Yeah. And you have a situation where whatever that trait is actually brought back to the surface.
Yeah.
That's why so many relationships are such big triggers for so many of us, because the things that we're not aware of that are happening subconsciously don't come to consciousness until we're in the relationship.
Exactly.
That's why there's really no practice for being in a relationship. You just have to get in one and work it out as you're in it.
Yeah.
If you have the self-awareness and the willingness to undo or redo what you already know, you have the greatest chance for creating something sustainable and healthy and happy.
Yeah.
But if you go in with your template set and you're unwilling to change it, or you have to make it look the way that makes you most comfortable, then that will set you up for disaster every time.
Yeah, exactly. The crazy thing, I come from the generation, and I was, raised by the generation where the husband, the father, he could do no wrong. He could do whatever he wanted to, as long as the bills was paid. Because I've heard this. Well, at least he put a roof over your head. But he's breaking my mom's heart and abusing her. And my grandparents say, well, at least he put a roof over your head. I know he might not, be the best, but at least he did that for you. And the crazy thing, I was thinking, like, I don't get it. I don't get it. But in the same token, that's what he saw. So he ended up doing what he saw and everything. And so, it's that whole adage, as long as the man is taking care of the bills, child, don't worry, it's going to be all right.
Absolutely.
And we suffer in
but
silence.
Now, oh my God, for generations.
Yeah.
But fortunately, now that's starting to change. But because it's starting to change, it's creating a lot of chaos. Because that's been the conditioning, especially for men, for so long. Men have been conditioned for the longest time that the only two emotions that they can indulge freely are anger and arousal.
Yeah.
And everything else has to come through one of those avenues, or it doesn't have a way out. Until men take on the mantle of experiencing their emotions as a 360-degree dynamic, then the chaos is going to continue. And that's something that women can't really help with in that regard, because it's an internal experience. Men have to give themselves permission to feel something, process something, understand something other than anger and arousal. And that's why therapy is so helpful. And that's why men who have actually taken those steps can be so useful in the lives of other men, because they can support each other in that way, in ways that women can't. That's why male friendships are so important.
Let me ask you this, Doc, because here's what I'm seeing. Is that the reason why a lot of women say he don't talk to me? I want him to talk to me because I know something going on. I see him angry, but he just want to have sex, but he don't want to talk.
Yeah. That's exactly what's happening a lot of the time. But it's not because men don't have any other feelings. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. It's just that they haven't been allowed avenues to actually express or process them in any other way besides anger or arousal.
Okay.
They have all the same emotions that women have.
Yeah.
They just haven't been conditioned or encouraged to explore them, express them, experience them the way women have. Women have been given a lot more leeway to be emotional all over the place.
Yeah.
Whether they're frustrated, whether they're feeling victorious, whether they're feeling fearful, whether they're feeling angry, whatever women are feeling, they're typically given a lot more leeway to just feel it.
Yeah.
And process it, even if it's chaotic, even if it's ugly, even if it's inconvenient in some way. Men don't have that same leeway with each other.
Exactly.
And until they create that with each other, then we'll be at this stalemate when we try to create our relationships together.
Yeah.
Because it takes more to be compatible with somebody on a day-to-day basis than just being angry or turned on.
Yeah, exactly.
We have to be efficient in other ways with each other's emotions and priorities and cares and concerns than just either being angry or being aroused. Because sex can't fix everything.
Yeah.
And anger doesn't fix everything.
Yeah.
So we just have to be willing to be broader in our expression with each other and to be careful and considerate of the fact that, it's a new territory for a lot of us. So we need to give each other space for that in ways that are actually healthy instead of damaging.
Exactly.
And we can do it. We just have to be aware of it.
Yeah.
We have to be willing to do it. We have to be willing to have marriages that don't look like grandpa and grandma. We got to be willing to stop romanticizing those relationships because, let's face it, a lot of those relationships were very unhealthy. They didn't last because they were happy. They lasted because of survival. Because women needed to stay in order to survive. I know a woman right now that I can touch that's only in her 70s. I can put my hands on her. She had to have her husband's permission to have a hysterectomy because she was bleeding so profusely that she was actually losing weight and losing consciousness at some point.
Wow.
And they had already had 3 children. But that was the state of the world that she grew up in. She didn't have anything to do with that. She didn't ask for that. That was just the world she grew up in. A world where women were the property of men, and so they had to stay for survival and all of that. But those are the marriages that we tend to romanticize a lot of the time. Now, I'm not saying they were all miserable. Don't get me wrong. Because there are a whole lot of people who made ways out of no way to stay together because they really did love each other and they valued the families that they were creating. But we live in a society now that doesn't value family the same way. So we have to create a new values for the families that we create with each other.
Exactly.
We have to be willing to make it new and stop trying to copy something that we're just romanticizing, that we really don't know about. We need to just make it over for us. Make it over for the world that we are in right now.
Exactly.
And we can do that.
Exactly. Doc, let me ask you this. That the term man up. Because a lot of times we hear that with men. It's like, you better man up. And I mean, we even hear that term given to little boys. Little boys being told, stop crying, man up. I'm like, he's a boy. He's not a grown man. So I like everything that you were hashing out about, being able to express yourself. So can we talk about that whole term and that label, man up? Because you never hardly hear that term. You'll never hear, somebody tell a little girl, you better woman up. But you always hear with little boys, man up.
I'd like to jump in on that. I would say we really need to go back to the Willie Lynch letters. We really need to look at the dismantling of the male protective figure. Like when you read the Willie Lynch letter, there is a part in there that specifically targets the female. And it was intentional that she would no longer rely on the male. And so you think about when you're a man and you have a family and then the white man could just come and take your kids, you have to become desensitized, and you have to get to a place where you can, because otherwise you completely just fall apart, right? So if you have a social construct where you have no say, you have a social construct where at any moment things can be ripped apart, you get to a point where you have to emotionally deaden yourself. And so I honestly believe that whole man up thing came into play during slavery, because you have no say. One day you may wake up and everybody is gone. So you got to suck it up, and, in the military they call it suck it up, buttercup. You just got to push on, keep going. And generation after generation and after generation has taken that survival method and has instilled it in men. And now here we are, many, many hundreds of years later, and we see that same thing, where you have some men who believe they have an option to be a father. They can just walk away. You have women who say, you don't have to be a part if you don't want to. We don't hold people accountable. And so I think part of what's happening is that there's a traumatic response from slavery that has never been addressed. We just kind of said after generation and say, we got so many kids today who are so far removed from the struggle, they don't even know what's happening. You have so many biracial kids, and where we have just been acculturated into society that now we don't even know from whence we've come. We don't know the history of what we do, like eating fatback, eating neck bones. They gave us the scraps of it, they gave us the scraps of the pig, and now that's like a delicacy, and we don't even realize what has happened to us. And so as we look at how do we change the narrative, man, it's just a hard place to be, because there's so many people on the continuum. You have people who don't want to talk about slavery. You got people who are so engrossed in slavery. And it's just a lot. We just have to take it one. We have to start with this generation, though. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we do. We definitely do. We definitely got to start with this generation. So, hey, Alicia, Eden, do you have anything to say on the whole thing about man up?
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. When you are yelling at an 8-year-old to man up, like, really? Seriously? It's an imposition that isn't even possible at that phase in his life.
Yeah.
And it comes back later. It comes back later as a emotional disconnect. It comes back later as not being available for a full relationship. It comes back later as early heart attack, as high blood pressure, as early death. It comes back that way because the actual emotions don't go anywhere. They don't go anywhere. Just because he doesn't cry doesn't mean he doesn't still feel whatever it was that he wanted to cry about. So his body is going to find another way to release it.
Yeah.
It's either going to come out physically, it's going to be damaging to his health, or it's going to be something that he struggles with as far as making legitimate connections with people, especially with women. And because intimate relationships are what they are, because they're the place where you can feel all of your emotions. So when he tries to make that relationship, that's going to be problematic because he's been burying his own feelings for so long that that's his habit. So if he doesn't want to create a new habit that could actually be suitable for maintaining a relationship, then he's either going to continue to have problematic relationships, usually one after the next, or he's going to bite the bullet, go to therapy, or make friendships with men who have done so, and write a new template for himself. Give himself permission to do what hasn't been done in his own life personally before. And it's going to be individual. It's not going to be what are women going to do? Well, when a man going to do? It's going to be what are you going to do? That's where it's all going to begin. Sure.
Yeah. I think we highlighted something with the term man up and then with subsequent dialogue that we don't really understand. Mental health, and I'm going to say the black community, but it's really communities, poorer communities that sit below middle class level of income. don't really have an understanding of mental health treatment. Like, a lot of us come from generations and outlooks where the answer to any kind of mental health outburst is, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. Or, you want to show crazy, I'm going to give you crazy. And what I mean by that is that because mental health is still seen as something like, we as people, we're very like, it's weird. We all know that one family relative that ain't right. And no amount of prayer, no amount of deliverance, no amount of money is going to make them right. Because they're just not, there's some chemical things going on. And when we talk about trauma and healing, we have to normalize for men across all spectrums, rich, poor, black, white, whatever. It is okay to take a knee. It is okay to be vulnerable, but society isn't there yet. It's starting to get there, but then when you factor in the fact that people that come socioeconomically where most of us come from, our fathers didn't go to mental health, and if they did, they damn sure didn't tell us about it. Right?
Yeah.
They didn't. It wasn't something that was talked about. So if there was a level of crisis going on in our father's life, ain't nobody talked about it. We found out because Uncle Ricky got locked up. And then the court made him go talk to somebody. And then again, if you're not going because of choice, you're really not committed to it. If you get court mandated to go somewhere, but you don't believe that that's where you need to be, you're not going there for yourself. So until we normalize mental health outreach, we're always going to have a bunch of men who are taught to man up, but then do we even know what the hell that means to man up? Because man up through certain facets means to beat the shit out of everything you disagree with.
Yeah. I totally get you. I totally get you, because when you look at, different generations, sometimes we talked our stuff out at the barbershop. Sometimes we talked our stuff out at the bar and everything like that. But then, sometimes we self-medicate and everything like that. And, I believe that that's the avenue that we really have to, journey down, but we have to unpack the stigma of mental health, because, like you said, if you want to act crazy, I'm going to give you crazy. But then it also goes into that whole term of what happens in my house stays in my house. You see what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, we got to get to the place where we not only be transparent, but we can get comfortable, about talking about some of these things. And I ain't gonna lie, it's gonna come out one way or the other. It's either gonna come out, through action, or it's gonna come out at the most inconvenient time. And I'm gonna just paint the picture. It'll come out Thanksgiving, or it'll come out Christmas, when everybody's there. And then there it is, hashed out. But I just want to say thank you for everybody that has contributed to this. Let's go into, the topic of the room.
Can I say something about that really quick?
Yeah.
I think that a way that we can, because I'm always looking for solutions. I think a way that we can start to combat that and stop people from making that a go-to for men is for men to actually, because what we're doing is, what people are doing when they tell a man to man up is that they're dismissing their feelings for their own comfort. Like, I'm uncomfortable, right, with what you're doing, but I'm going to tell you to man up, right, because I'm uncomfortable. So men can then just counter. So you're feeling uncomfortable right now, but you're telling me to man up. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because there's some discomfort going on there. What's going on with you that you're telling me to man up about something? Why can't I feel the way that I feel, right? And have those emotions and those feelings without you feeling uncomfortable? Why is that making you uncomfortable, right? Let's have that discussion.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can let me feel.
Can I come at this from a military perspective?
Yeah. Go ahead, Doc.
Right. So from a military perspective, when one is told to man up, let's suppose you're taking the average 17, 18-year-old. You're taking them from high school, and you're taking them to basic training. And you're saying, listen, I'm going to teach you to be a killer. I'm going to teach you to be a killer. I'm going to give you a gun. I'm going to show you how to shoot it. And when I tell you to shoot, you got to shoot. There's no back talk. There's no second guessing. I need you to just do what I say do. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what you feel. When I say shoot, you got to shoot. Why? Because all of us are depending on you to keep us safe. So one person doesn't hold their weight in the team, everybody could die. So now you got not only your weight, you got the weight of everybody on your shoulders. And so you got to get to an emotional dead place. That's the best way I can say it. Emotionally detached, emotionally dead, to say, okay, in America, I can't just pick up a gun and shoot somebody and go to jail. But now that I'm over here, I'm over in Afghanistan, I'm over in Iraq, I'm over with the people I don't know. I'm shooting kids, I'm shooting bystanders, I'm shooting civilians. You tell me to shoot, I gotta shoot. And I can't have a feeling about that. I just go and do what you say do. And then the after effect, when you bring me back to America, now I just gotta reintegrate, and I have to drive and have road rage and have PTSD, and then you tell me just man up. And so there is a psychological construct to just having to suck it up. Like I think about black men in America getting shot by cops. You can't talk back. You can't do anything. So that whole dynamic, that framework of man up is so much bigger than men don't cry. It's men don't respond. Men don't stand up for themselves. Like think about a grown black man in the face of a white cop. And you have to be quiet. You can't stand up for yourself. You can't speak your truth. There's no justice, nothing. You just have to shut it up. Buttercup, like we say in the military. So it's so much bigger than men don't cry. It's more like, man, I can't speak up for myself. You know, and when you are silenced, because that is what's happening, when you have been silenced, you no longer know what your voice sounds like. And so I think we have to open it up beyond just an emotional response, but just being able to take accountability and responsibility and saying, I have a voice, I have a vision, but in certain areas of life, you don't. Look at all of our black men in jail. They had to man up. You go to jail, you can't speak up for yourself depending on what's going on. So it's that ability to hold everything that means truth to you and not say anything. So I just think we have to look at it in a bigger way and figure out how do we begin to dismantle that. But we live in a society where we can't. I tell my son, don't scare the white people. I mean, that's just the truth. Because white people call the police.
Yeah.
And so it's just when I think about man up, it's not just don't cry. It's hold your peace. I mean, we got to find the strength in it to say all of it's not bad. You got to hold your peace so you can make it home. You got to hold your peace so your family can see you again. You got to hold your peace so that cop doesn't shoot you. So I think there's just more dynamic to it that we have to look at.
Yeah, I like that. I like that, Doc. Let me give you some applause. So what I want to do is I want to go to the main topic of the room. What makes a person easy? And so that word easy is a label. It's a connotation that's been given. So I know, when I hear the term easy, my mind automatically goes to a loose woman sometimes. But then there's many variables. Like, is a person easily manipulated? And then you have to ask yourself, okay, if a woman is, or man, no, if a woman is too responsive, she's labeled as easy. Or if she's non-responsive, then they call her stuck up. So it's almost like, okay, what can I be? Because if I'm this extreme, then I'm one thing. If I'm that extreme, then I'm something else. So let's unpack this whole thing about easy, because I look at it, it's an unfair label that's been given a lot of times to women, and I feel as though that it shouldn't be. So, we need to unpack it and see why that term, why have we adopted that term, and why is that term so relevant even in our own communities of color. So does somebody want to start it off?
I'll start it off.
Okay.
Yeah, easy, like you said, is a label primarily for women who are assumed to be lax in their moral character and who also provide easy sexual access. we don't hear this term relative to men typically. It's just not a descriptor for men. Sort of like homewrecker. It's like, what is the male equivalent for homewrecker? I'll wait. It's the same way with easy. It is an imposition primarily for women. And I think where it stems from is we got to roll it all the way back to patriarchy and them wanting to control and police women's bodies, because they've always been somewhat threatened by the idea that women are sexual. Because if women are sexual, then that means that there's an option that she may not be satisfied with whatever he's doing to her. And that is an ego blow that he is not willing to accept or process. So it's easier to control whatever her sexuality is, because then it's less threatening and it's more easy to manage in the confines of a relationship and into the society at large. I mean, men can talk about what women want all day long if they want to. But if they really want to know what women want, take the boundaries off. Take the barriers off. And then just watch what she does. But that's never happened before. That's never been something that was part and parcel of patriarchy, because it doesn't work to the male advantage. And everything in this society is geared toward what men desire, what men want to look at, what men want to feel, how they want to be sexually. The primary interest of the porn industry is based around the male gaze. It doesn't really have much to do with women, except that they're the receptacles. They are not the focus. So easy women is one of the many words that's just used to describe a woman that a man doesn't really have to respect. He doesn't have to treat her like a person. He doesn't have to expect that she's a human. It's an offshoot of the Madonna whore syndrome that this society is built on. And the only one who is easy is a woman. A promiscuous man is not described that way.
No.
But a promiscuous woman is.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I mean about the whole thing about label, because I could go, I mean, I look at it, look at Wilt Chamberlain. Remember Wilt Chamberlain? He said he slept with over 1,000 women. And the crazy thing about it, nobody ever labeled him. Nobody ever called him a whore. Nobody ever said anything like that. But you get a woman that sleep with 3 guys. Oh, she's a whore. She's this. She's easy. And I'm like, oh my God, really?
What's your body count?
Exactly.
That's another one of my favorites.
Yes. What's your body count?
Another one of my favorites. What's your body count?
Yeah. And then we say, some guys, they start asking about, sexual past sexual partners. Ooh, that was just the way you was just brought up. And everything. Right.
Meanwhile, yeah, he's got hundreds of sexual partners.
Exactly.
Meanwhile,
I
mean, I went to college with dudes that racked up 3 digits by their 3rd semester.
Wow.
By their 3rd semester.
Yeah.
They had slept with over 100 women.
Yeah.
As 20-year-olds.
Wow.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. So does anybody else want to comment? What makes a woman easy? Why do we have that label? Because it's unfair, and it's a burden, it's a weight, and everything. Because like Eden Adele was saying, when you look at the porn industry, there it is right there. Everything that you look at today, like she said, it's male. It's about the male gaze. It's about what the male wants. We could go on Instagram right now, and it's like, we got all these Instagram models. All of them got big asses, shaking it all over the place, because that's what men want to see. And I ain't gonna lie, some people have picked it up and they have, okay, since this is what they want to see, I'm going to make it marketable. And so when you begin to look at porn, what sells in porn is the money shot. The money shot is the guy ejaculating on whatever body part of the woman that can sell. It might be facials, it might be the ass, it might be the mouth, it might be all of that. But it's about male gaze. And that's the God knows truth. And the crazy thing about it is that when that starts getting out there, and some of our people, our young people start getting into that, then we start to think that every girl is like that. Then we start to look for the conversations. And then we think that every conversation is an innuendo because of the fantasy. Because we imagine certain things. And so it's that whole thing about the male gaze. But when you begin to look at the whole term about easy, it's an inaccuracy, it's a label, but there's also a backstory with why a person does what they do. You know, you got to look at a person's history. You got to look at, okay, is she easy because I can have sex with her? Is she easy because, you know, I can manipulate her? Is she easy in one regard and she hard in another regard? Those are it's a whole lot of variables out there. So talk to me. Let's open this bad boy up, man. Let's get this brown liquor going.
Well, I would say the equivalent of an easy woman is an F boy.
Okay, yeah.
Plain and simple. They're both easy individuals who, you know, in the terms of that they're relating, that they're easy as far as having sex with, and they're willing to do that. Yeah. This really came from I was having a conversation with my partner, and we were talking. You know, this conversation came up of what makes an easy woman, and you know, his comment was, easy for him, an easy woman is not a woman that would easily have sex with you, right?
Yeah. An
easy woman for him is someone that can be, you know, manipulated, or someone that doesn't have the capacity to think for themselves. That's what he considered an easy woman. It wasn't even about the sex.
Okay.
So that's why I put that question out there. Like, okay, are there other people, other men out there, other people out there that have that same kind of thought pattern? Because everybody doesn't view sex the same way. A lot of, you know, most of us view sex as dirty, and we don't want to talk about it, and you know, it's taboo, but everybody's having it. You know, so
exactly.
how can it be taboo? And you open up Instagram, like you said, and you see it. You open up a magazine, you turn on the TV, and there's commercials. I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah. Right?
We see it in kids' cartoons. We see it. You know, we're seeing it everywhere. So how can we not want to talk about it when it's everywhere? How is it still so taboo? When I post things on my social media about sex, everybody wants to clam up. So a question that I'm going to post in the next couple of days is, when was the first time you added oral to your sexual experience? And I know that's going to, you know, lose me some followers. And I'm okay with that. Because, because at this point, why are we not having these conversations? We have 12-year-old kids that are doing this.
Yeah.
So why are we not having these conversations in a way that are going to be beneficial to our relationship? You got people out here, you know, talking about, you know, not to be crude, but they're eating butt. You know what I'm saying?
Tossing salads.
I'm just saying.
We're doing all that. But like I said, it's taboo.
Yeah.
So why are we in this place of we can't say it, but we can say it? You know what I mean? It's this weird thing that we have about sex, and we have about intimacy and how that all goes. So yeah, I would say the equivalent of easy is the F boy, and I would definitely say that the definition of easy is not just sex.
Yeah.
We have to expand beyond that, right?
Yeah, we do.
We really got to get down to why we see someone as an easy person. That's just like saying a man is a simp, right?
Yeah.
Like, why are we really saying that, right?
Yeah.
So what makes that? What makes us say that about a person, and what does that really come down to?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the reason for just to give you some background, that was the reason for the question, is because it was looked at in a different way, and I wanted to see if anybody else had that same mentality or that same look.
I'm glad you brought that out, because let me ask you this, because it's almost like your significant other was saying, it's a woman that I could Jedi mind trick, and I'm thinking about Eddie Murphy's Raw, when the woman, during his monologue, he was saying about a guy getting caught cheating, and he tells a woman, "You didn't see me," and she was like, "Well, maybe I didn't see him." And it's crazy because it's like, okay, if I could Jedi mind trick her, then I could get away with a whole lot of other stuff because because she's easy in that regard.
Correct.
So I totally see it now.
If I do something, that she doesn't like and I bring her flowers, it's going to be all better.
Yeah.
Right? It's easy. I can manipulate her in that way. Right?
Yeah.
Everything will just go back to normal.
Let me ask you this.
And that's if I bring her some jewelry, if I,
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that because I was getting ready to ask you about the shut up ring.
About the what?
The shut up ring. How guys present rings to shut a woman up.
Oh, the shut up ring. Yes, yes. When they really don't want to present a ring to a woman, but he understands that that's going to get her off his back, right? So then she becomes easy in that way, right?
Yeah.
And with no intention of marrying her anytime soon.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So now he's
ever.
Right, if ever.
Exactly.
So he's totally and completely manipulated her, right?
Yeah.
And now she's seen as easy, right?
Yeah, she's easy. Hey, baby, I know you want to get married, but let's wait till I retire from my job.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
With a little promise ring, right?
Yeah, with a little promise ring.
With a little promise ring.
Yeah, and in between all that, y'all done had about 4 or 5 kids. Bought a house together.
You
know what I mean?
You know what I find interesting about this topic is that for a man who, quote unquote, looks for an easy woman, that must mean that he really doesn't have any self-esteem because anything worth having is worth fighting for. And so if you think about why a man would choose a quote unquote easy woman, which is a stereotype anyway, it speaks to his lack of confidence that he could go attract somebody else. So now not only is she sexually easy, but she's an easy target. It's like going to the gun range and you just shooting anything. Like you're not really focused. You're not really looking for a wife. You're just looking for Miss Right Now. And so you go find something you think is easy, just like when you go take a test or when you go conquer something, you go for the easy way out. And so from her perspective, maybe she's not easy. Maybe she's just been hurt. Maybe she's just evolved in her sexuality and she just wants to be like everybody else. Because you let it, like Eden was saying, you got a body count when you're a man, all this other stuff. But as a woman, you sleep with more than 2 people. And then, you stereotype as some sort of harlot. But then I think it also goes back to the biblical days of women were property. And so the social construct was that a man could say, she enticed me. And then he was good. It's like when Jesus found a woman in adultery. Obviously, she wasn't naked by herself. Where was the dude? And so she becomes the scapegoat for what he wants to do. So I think you just see that today, where she just becomes the scapegoat for his inability to manage his own sexual being, and now she just becomes the target. It makes it easy because they can just say all women are like that, so don't even worry about it.
Yeah, you know what I'm curious about, Doc? Where did the rules come from? Because it seemed like the rules, they apply to one community, but then, it's like, okay, if it's like back in the day, if it was a white woman that fell, they will blame a black person, or they would say, sometimes, I got enticed. The black maid enticed me, but really it was the master. Really it was the father or the husband of, the husband, and he's making moves on the servants and everything like that.
Well, that goes back to she becomes the scapegoat.
Yeah.
So when that white slave owner saw all that boobs, he saw that booty, he was like, wait a minute, because wifey ain't got no junk in the trunk like that.
Yeah.
Where's all this voluptuousness coming from? And so, of course, he's not going to go to his wife and be like, listen, I just want to tap it for a second. I'll be back, but I need to go tap this slave real quick. So now he's going to demonize her and say, oh, no, man, you see all that? Oh, she was enticing me. So now you have this whole, like my I have 2 master's degrees. The second one is in womanist theology, of a master of sacred theology. And in it, I talk about the challenges between white women and black women, because that was something that was put into the system to keep us from liking each other. So you talk to your average black woman, there's always an issue with a white woman, because they have been acculturated to believe that we are the seductress, that we are the ones who are taking their men, that we are the ones who are doing this. But if you look at it, they all trying to be tan. They all trying to get a little bit of plump in their lips. They all trying to get a little booty. Yeah. So it's just crazy all the way around.
Yeah, it is crazy, because the crazy thing about it, now you're starting to hear the opposite. Like black women say, why are all these white women taking our men? You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
You know,
if you think about it, every ethnicity has their take on an easy woman, right?
Yeah.
I think all women are looked at, no matter what ethnicity or culture you come from. All women are looked at, as that sacred thing to not touch, right?
Exactly.
And so if she is defiled in any way, she's unpure. And I think every ethnicity has that. I don't know that I would say that was just, a black thing or a white thing. I'm thinking in my mind right now about, Asians and Indians and, and how their culture and the marriage bed and to be a virgin, and every culture has that aspect within it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially when you look at Jewish culture. You expected, some Jewish cultures to be a virgin, even in the Nation of Islam. The way that they do certain things, is an expectation that's put on women and everything. But the whole thing about easy, it has connotations, it has variables and everything. But I really believe that, a lot of times these labels come because of some of our family upbringing and everything. And like I said, it's like, she can't be too much of anything, because it's like, okay, if she's non-responsive, she's stuck up. She high sedity. But the crazy thing about it is that we never hear this with guys. A guy, he can be, have standards and everything, and nobody calls him anything. Or maybe they might say, well, maybe he might be gay, because I'm giving him all the moves and everything, and he ain't responding. They may say that, but it's like a dime a dozen with that. But with women, oh my God, I'm like, I hear the term, and it's like, why is it that we call our women stuck up because she rejects a certain guy? You know what I mean? I'm like, come on, dude, you can't call her stuck up. Look at how you approached her. You think she gonna respond to that? So we really got it. Oh yeah, really. Because if I can't,
yes, I absolutely think so. Because in this society, especially, I know it applies globally as well. But since we're here, in this society, men are conditioned to believe that women are extensions of themselves. They're not conditioned to treat women as separate people. They're conditioned to believe that women are extensions of themselves, that they are here for their pleasure, to make their lives easier, to be what they are expected to be, and that's their function in society at large. And that's why when we deviate from that, it creates all this chaos.
Yeah.
Men have really not been required to be fully present in relationships for centuries. All that's been asked of them for the most part is provision and protection. And now that we're living in a society that requires more from men to actually sustain a relationship, we have all this chaos. And because women have been conditioned to do all of that, to be everything you want, you could run up and down Clubhouse anytime, anywhere, and you'll see rooms, how to be what men want, What is it that men want from women? How do we make men happy? Blah, blah, ad nauseum. Because that's the conditioning for women. We are conditioned to be extensions of men. So men are the ones who are making the rules in that regard. Because it's their system. They put the system in place. They're the ones who decide what works for them. It's set up by men for men's advantage. But now that that's being shaken, and it's not just being accepted as the way things are and the way things have always been, and we're living in this society where men are discovering, or men are actually taking the therapy leap, or men are actually saying, you know what, I really do have more than anger and arousal going on in here, and I want to figure out another way to handle it besides having a heart attack.
Yeah.
That we're in the position that we're in now. And as clumsy as it is, and as uncomfortable as it might be, I take it as an encouraging sign of what's possible. Because it can all be used positively. It can all be used to make progress in this whole relationship arena so that we can actually start to reverse some of these dismal statistics that we've been living for the last few decades. Because it really doesn't have to be that hard to be in a relationship. If you just have two honest people who are compatible with each other and who share a vision for what they want their future to look like. The rest of it can be worked out.
Yeah. And it's going to take some time to hash that out, because everybody's communication style, is different and everything. And I totally agree with everything that all of you are saying. So I think the one thing that I've seen is that a lot of times when there's brokenness in a family, then a lot of times, sometimes women, even men, gravitate towards what they're lacking. And next thing you know, it's like, okay, I'm going to go with this person because they like me. Because I'm lacking this and I don't like myself and I got these whole self-esteem issues. And next thing you know, it's like, you got a young girl calling a young boy daddy because she's missing a daddy. You know what I mean? It's almost like you got a young boy calling a young girl mommy because he might be lacking that, or she may be domineering. And so I think a lot of times when you have that term easy, or if you have that term F-boy, it comes from a place of brokenness to a certain degree. And so we got to learn, we got to start healing that brokenness, because if not, it's like, if it don't get healed, or if it heals the wrong way, then a lot of times you have to re-break it, set it right. But the crazy thing about it is that some people can't take it. A lot of people have learned, what I'm seeing, to learn how to function in toxicity. People have learned to make survival mode normal mode. People have learned to have peace in dysfunction. And we got to, really start dealing with that and say, okay, we got to turn some things around, because even though you may have, been used to this, this is not the norm. This is not the norm. This is why we have so many statistics in our communities when it comes to us, because we internalize that stress. We learn how to work with toxicity. We learn how to just work it. But we got to come to a place of peace. We got to come to a place of truth so that we can be free as a people. So, hey, does anybody else want to comment on the whole term about easy, or even some of the stuff that I said about the brokenness being healed? All right. Well, hey, look, let's go into the next question. I want to talk about rejection. So why is it that certain men or women can't take rejection? Like, hey, I'm kicking it. I'm at the bar. I see Miss Bennett at the club and everything, and I send her a drink. She takes a drink, and I feel like I could just walk over to her and be like, yo, hey, what's going on? Ooh, sorry, boo. I appreciate the drink and all, but, I just ain't interested. I'm out here with my girls. And then I catch an attitude. Oh, you said Diddy? Da, 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 da. Why is it that we can't take rejection? Why is that? So somebody talk to me.
Because of the sense of entitlement.
So
we feel entitled to each other. Like, whatever that is, whatever that thing is that we want from someone else, we feel entitled to it just because we want it.
Wow.
And then we internalize the rejection as some kind of an indictment against our personal value, against who we are as people. We see it as somebody else seeing us as less than we're comfortable with. And so we internalize it. And that's all happening between our ears. It really doesn't have anything to do with the other person at all. We take it personally, but it probably isn't even personal. And even if it is personal, that doesn't make it true. Just because someone is willing to devalue you does not then mean that you have to agree.
Yeah.
And if you are feeling rejected, that means that to some degree you do agree. And that's what you're really mad about.
Yeah.
They've triggered something in you that you're uncomfortable about, that they were supposed to make comfortable for you and they didn't.
Yeah.
And that's what you're actually mad about.
Yeah. So I like what you said about entitlement. So let me ask you this. So I feel as though that I'm entitled because I sent her a drink. I feel like that I'm entitled because, you know, I'm making the first move and she shouldn't reject me. But it might be,
exactly.
You know, I got the wrong type of cologne on. I'm not her flavor. It could be a whole lot of variables why she's rejecting me, but I take it personal and then I call her all types of, you know, oh, you stuck up bitch.
Right.
Like
all of that. Because people, we just don't want people, we don't want to allow people to want whatever it is that they want.
Yeah.
We want you to have to deserve whatever it is you want.
Yeah.
We want you to do something to earn whatever it is you want. And the truth is, people want whatever they want, whether it makes sense or not.
Yeah.
And they're going to continue to do that. Yeah. Whether they deserve it, whether they've earned it, whether they've done any of that. People want what they want, and here's the rub. That's okay.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that you're the one who's required to supply it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the disconnect for most people. That just because somebody wants something from you does not then mean that you are required to supply it.
Okay.
You have the option to refuse.
Yeah.
You never give up that option. You never give up that option. No matter your relationship status, no matter how many licenses have been exchanged or how many years you've been together, how many babies you made, your personal autonomy never goes away. And because you gave it away doesn't make it a problem for the other person. That's an internal issue that would be a good thing to work out in therapy.
Yeah, exactly.
But rejection is internal much more than external, because other people's valuation or devaluation of you isn't even your business. It's not even something you can do anything about, because they can change that at any time for any reason, and it doesn't have to make any sense.
Yeah.
And they don't even have to let you know it. And it can happen, and they can change it back and forth at their will, because it's happening inside of them. So for you to get stuck on the hamster wheel of trying to change that is what keeps you stressed out and off balance and feeling away. But that's internal. Yeah. That's not about them. Yeah. That's about you.
Yeah, yeah.
So you being able to let rejection roll off your back is a useful skill. Because it happens more often than not. So the better that you get at not taking it personally, the simpler it is for you to make relationships that actually work for you rather than against you.
Yeah, yeah, I like
the rejection conversation. The rejection conversation, especially, you know, with women, is always a funny one to have. And I'm always having this conversation of why women just can't, why women don't feel like they can approach a man, right? That's taboo as well. So I was watching a movie the other day. I can't remember what this movie was, but there were guys at a club, 4 or 5 guys at a club, and they had a bet, and then their whole goal was to see how many times they can get rejected. They weren't looking to even get the girl, right? They were looking to be rejected so that they can win the bet because it was all about having tougher skin, right? And I think women need to start adopting that, right? How many times can I get rejected, right? So that I can get that thicker skin and feel better about taking those steps, not feeling so entitled that a man has to approach me all the time or nothing happens, right? And opening up those doors to actually finding the person that I want in my life, right, or want to have in my life, taking that initiative, not feeling like, oh, I'll never have anyone in my life because a man will never approach me, right? Approach him. So I just thought that movie was funny to me. I giggled because I was like, man, I wish women would take these bets, right? But it wouldn't be the same, right? Because a man wouldn't reject a woman like that.
Oh no, trust.
It wouldn't be the same.
Not even. Not even.
It wouldn't have that same effect, right?
No, it wouldn't. Oh, trust. It's not too. It's not a lot of guys out here that would turn women down. I'm serious. Even if it wasn't their, even if it wasn't a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, they might be accommodating. Seriously, catch them at the right time.
Oh, men have sex with who they can. Women have sex with who they want.
Yeah,
and that's the disconnect. And that's why women are less likely to put themselves in that position that Alicia was just talking about.
Yeah,
because they get so hooked on what they want, and that's how they end up on these hamster wheel situations with men who don't really like them.
Yeah,
because they don't have the patience, or maybe they don't have the awareness to actually engage with the man who wants them back. It's like they're so fixated on what they want, they don't want what wants them back. And it's on the want back that you can actually make a relationship work. It has to work both ways, or it won't work ultimately.
Yeah.
So if there's somebody that you're interested in for whatever reason, and they don't reciprocate, it has not been your job to try to make them change their mind.
Yeah.
That's how you get caught on a hamster wheel.
Can I ask
That's
you
not
this?
the job.
Can I ask you this? Because
please.
What if the wrong person likes you?
You don't have to like everybody that likes you.
Yeah, no.
But it has to be mutual.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be mutual. And you have to be able to discern for yourself what actually works for you at this time in your life.
Okay.
Knowing that it might change later.
Yeah.
Because it probably will. Especially if you're together for a long time. Your priorities, your desires, your vision for your future, all of that is subject to change at any time for any reason.
Yeah.
And so that person who works so well for you, or who you believe works so well for you right now, may not fit later. But that's a bridge that you can cross when you get there. But right now, you need to be able to discern that for yourself. And here's the rub: walk away when it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's where a lot of people get messed up at. They have a problem walking away. They feel like they
walk away.
Yeah.
Stop negotiating with stuff that you know doesn't work for you. Just walk away.
Yeah.
It's okay. You don't owe anybody your life. You really don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
It's okay to walk away from situations that don't work for you, that suck your soul dry. Mm-hmm. It's okay to walk away from those.
Yeah.
No matter who wants you to stay in it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, sorry, girl, I'm living this vegetarian lifestyle. I can't hang with you. You want to eat scrapple all day.
Not scrapple. Oh my God. Did we have to go there? Oh my God. Scrapple. Can a sister get some spam at least? Do we gotta go to scrapple? Oh my goodness. Ooh wee.
Hey, Alicia. Let me ask you this. Can you break down that whole thing, because you and Miss Eden, you guys were hitting on the same thing about people wanting what they want. Can you unpack that whole thing that we were talking about the other day about the heart wants what it wants?
I think we was having a discussion about, that term, the heart wants what the heart wants, right? And people use that to be able to place blame later when things don't work out, right?
Yeah.
Because we actually choose who we love, right? So we choose it every day. And so there was a discussion that someone said to me, matter of fact, I think it was RL, and he's not on here right now. He could have kind of went into that and explained that, but he was saying that that we fall in and out of love, right? And who we are 5 years from now or 10 years from now, different person. Okay, and that's understood. And my response to that is, well, we choose to fall out of love because we choose to love every day. So if we decide that, don't want to love that person anymore, that's a choice that we're going to make. We choose to outgrow someone, right? Because if we have goals that we're trying to reach together, a lot of times couples don't have any purpose for their relationship. People get married and they don't. What are we doing in our community as a couple? What are we doing for the world as a couple? Right? Because it can't just stay with us. We have to move beyond and past just us. What are we doing for our community? So when we don't think beyond that and we lose sight of why we're even in this relationship, right? It's not about because I want somebody to love and because I want them to love me. Yeah, that's all great and everything, but you don't need a marriage for that. That's just a relationship that you can have and you can leave whenever you want to. But why are you getting married, right? What is it that you're going to contribute to society with your marriage? And I don't think people really look at that and really examine and write down these goals. You should have monthly, quarterly, and yearly goals that you're trying to reach as a couple. And if you're doing that, how can you grow apart if you're constantly figuring out what are we getting to next? What are our goals? Where are we, right? So first, knowing yourself and knowing what type of relationship that you want to be in. Without knowing yourself and knowing who you want to be with, it ain't gonna work anyway, right? Because you have to be going in the same direction. However, if you are having these goals and continuously achieving these goals and doing what you need to achieve them, you choose to grow apart. You choose to leave that person and go along with your way, right? Because you're not walking together. You're walking separately. So that was the conversation that we were having.
I like that. Let me give you some applause. All right. Does anybody want to tag off of that? Anybody wants to comment on that? All right. I think we done been on here long enough. The time is getting late. So what I want to do is I want to ask each of you, if you have any up and coming events that are coming up, just tell us about that. Also tell us about some of the products. I know, Alicia, you have some products and everything. Can you tell us about your intimate products, your ice products, and dear future spouse?
Absolutely. I have a product line called Ice, Intimacy, Connection, and Energy. And I have, in that product line is everything that's about intimacy. We have creams and fragrances, massage candles that you can use with your partner and melts and those types of things. In order to create that intimacy with your partner, we have classes, sort of like yoga, but not yoga.
Oh, you got the Kama Sutra going on?
That help you, connect with your partner on a physical level, right? But then for my singles, I have the Dear Future Spouse journals that I have. And it's a journal that is actually helping singles to get rid of and shed all of those, selfish tendencies that we tend to have going into relationships so that we can be in a relationship with the partner and not always want to take, but also know how to give. And so that's going on right now. We start August 3rd, so everybody get your books and get ready for that. You can go on AliciaBennett.com to get all of your intimacy product and the Dear Future Spouse kit as well.
All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Let me give you some applause. All right. Okay. Terrence Tillman. He wants to say something. All right. Hello, Mr. Tillman.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Listen, didn't want to say too much. I just wanted to say that I enjoyed the conversation. And I stayed on here pretty much the whole time, and I enjoyed what each of you has to say, man. Keep doing an amazing job. That's all.
All right. Thank you for that, sir. Thank you for that. Let me give you some applause. Thank you. All right. Miss Eden Adele, could you tell us, do you have anything coming up? Can you tell us about a little about what you do and how people can get a hold of you?
Absolutely. My playground is Facebook for the most part, because y'all be cutting me up on Facebook. But yeah, that's where the relationship conversation continues for me. Get Back to Passion is my company at getbacktopassion.com. And that's where I am always seeking to answer the question, how do I love me and love you too?
Right.
So you can visit me there as well, or come to Facebook or Instagram and check me out there. I do a post every day that's about relationships and ask questions to get people to discuss what's going on with them. And I always answer back, so feel free to join the party.
All right. Thank you for that. Let me give you some applause. All right. Dr. Lane, you're up. So can you tell us what you got going on, the books and stuff? Because I know you got a lot of stuff. Do you have any up-and-coming events?
Yeah, I have so I finally opened my first club. It's called Empowered to Be Great. And tomorrow at 9 a.m., I'm going to have my first little room opening up, talking about what does it mean to have an internal conversation. Is your internal that's my granddaughter, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Is that internal conversation speaking your demise or your destiny? So that's tomorrow at 9. I'm working on a new book called Spiritual Awakening, 9 Shifts from Who I Am to Who I Am Becoming. All of my books are on Amazon. And if you Google my name, nobody I know of in this world has my name. If you Google my name, all of my books will come up. And now I'm delving into credit repair. While I was deployed, I found out that my ex-husband had some things on his credit that now has affected my credit. So in my desire to free myself, I've learned quite a bit. So now I've decided, let me help some other people be free, because credit is really destroying people's lives. And so all of that is on my website. It's DessicaJoesFlow.com. And it's in my profile if you put it down there. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak. This was a great conversation. And Leon, you keep doing your thing.
All right. Hey, thank you, Doc. Hey, Doc, is your room going to be here on Clubhouse, or is it going to be like a Facebook room?
Oh, no, it's going to be on Clubhouse.
Okay. All right. Cool. Let me give you some applause. All right. So, hey, all of my moderators, I want to thank you for coming on here. And I know, we set this up. It was real fast. But I hope that we can definitely do something like this again, because it is definitely needed. So I appreciate all of you. God knows I do. And I want to thank you all for coming on the platform, the Brother Leon Show. It's been an honor to have all of you as guests. And I'm looking for, what we're going to do in the future, because I definitely want to have you guys back on. So, I got season 3 coming up. That'll probably be coming out in August. So, hey, I just want to say thank you for everything, for all of the input, all of the jewels of wisdom and knowledge, because all of you women are phenomenal. You are incredible, and I appreciate the way God created you to be and how you are today. So I just want to say thank you for everything. Let me give you some applause, and let me give you some thunder, because y'all brought it today. I'm not going to lie. Y'all brought it today. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for everything. And to the audience, Terrence, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for everybody that has tuned in. And if I catch up with RL, I'm going to just tell him thank you, too, for his contribution as well. So I want to take it. I'm going to leave this room, but I just want to say thank you for everything. I ain't going to lie. It's been incredible. So, hey, for those who don't know, I have a podcast. I have a podcast called The Brother Leon Show. I also have Truth and Life Urban Ministry. We are a ministry for activists and those who are in the struggle, but also don't want to, kick their faith to the side. So we are a place of faith and activism, and I call it a place where faith and activism meet. So we're going to be changing some things up, but we're still going to keep it going. And so I just want to say, hey, you can catch this broadcast, Truth and Life Urban Ministry podcast, as well as the Brother Leon Show, wherever you get your podcasts. I'll post on social media. I'll put my interviews and everything on social media. I'm on, IG, Facebook, Twitter. I'm on there. So just look for me. So I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate all of you guys. So we're going to end this room. All right. So guys, that is the end of the Clubhouse room and the discussion, what makes a woman easy. So, hey, I just want to thank all of the guests again. And so, hey, I can't wait to post this because God knows it was a good discussion. So I want you guys to be blessed. And I just want to say, hey,
walk in the truth that makes you free every day. Follow Brother Leon on all social media outlets.